All right. Game two of the Open between Delial and Akiyama. In the first game they played was closed, and Delial won 9-1. He plucked a 2 and a 10, which was kind of miraculous, but also he planned it. And it is a rule set where stuff like that will happen more often because every card must have a 1 or 2 on it, and that's going to make some large number gaps. Weird set to think about. I don't think Akiyama did anything wrong there. But W wins game one, the closed game, and they move on to the open. And they played an open game where Akiyama ran out three level threes when you only need to use one. And most people have used two, but you only need to use one. And then, beyond that, his first two moves were with his level fives, and he mostly had level threes remaining that were facing exactly away from the action. But he found a way to use them really effectively together, setting up pluses with their backsides working off the other's front side, and managed to hold a tie, and fully deserved it. I checked with the solver, and there were no wins for Delhi at any point that game. It was clearly pressure for him, but there was no forced breakthrough. There was nothing that locked it in. Now, this game, Akiyama has gone for a much more traditional hand, right? They've both gone for a 7-6-4-3. Deli has stuck with his 5-1-4-7, while Akiyama has stuck with his 6-6-3-2. But Akiyama has changed his 5-1-4-7 to a 6-7-4-3, which seems like a huge upgrade. Akiyama switched to the 6-2-6-6, saying, okay, I think it's useful here to hit sixes, not sevens. And he's stuck with a 7-7-4 corner, and he's stuck with a 6-6-3-3, though he's made it a corner rather than up down. I worry that the 6-6-3-3 and 3-6-6-2 pair could be a little clunky together, that they actually don't capture each other very well. But I also don't think you're really using one to set up the other. You're going to try to hold on to your higher level cards. Though, as we saw last game, Akiyama is just not as fussed about the levels of cards and kind of the pure power as most players, and he is better working around it than most players are. So I would say, again, with a normal player, I would be like, they'll hold their level fives for the end game. With Akiyama, I'll be like, I have no idea what he'll do, and it'll be good play. Delial, I expect to play in a more traditional fashion. So we changed Galagros for 6-5-6-5. These are pretty similar cards, of course. But with more sevens to the side in his hand, 6-5-6-5 should have a little more play, right? It's likely that there are going to be more sevens facing left and right and more sixes facing up down. And if you look at Akiyama's hand, that's also a good read on Akiyama's hand. So the 6-5-6-5 is likely to have more plus potential than the 5-6-5-6 would. By the way, I'm still eating, so I'm going to pause in a moment to eat the rest of my breakfast, lunch, whatever. Yeah, so I think that's enough about the hands. I'm glad Delhi is rotating the hand a bit. Open, less important to do this than closed, but Delhi sometimes sticks with hands more than I think he should, and it's nice to see him moving around, presenting a moving target rather than a fixed target. I didn't notice anything looking at Delial's hand last time that made me think, yes, this kind of 7-6 corner or whatever will really be trouble for it. But we could notice here, it does not have a 7 down. Now, it can take 7s up, right? 4-7-6-3 and 5-1-4-7 combined to cover the 7 up range, so, like, it looks pretty reasonable. One difference I would note is I think Akiyama's choices of a 7-7-4-1 is a little more traditional than Deli's of a 7-7-4-2. The 2 is a little added power, but you'd think 4-1 being able to pick up 7s would have net slightly more value. On the other hand, there is only one card with a 7 down in the whole game, so that's never going to happen. But as we saw last game, the 4 and the 1 can create some plus potential, right? There are some 3s lying around, some 4s lying around, and if you can play off those, you can maybe hit 6s and 7s. Well, a gap of 4-2, I guess 4s and 6s are lying around, and maybe you hit stuff. But my instinct is that Akiyama's card is the very slightly better here. Now, I haven't looked for starters at all, But my instinct would be use the 5147, uh, probably in, not sure where. Somewhere. Somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where. Hmm. I don't know what I would do if I was Deli, and I'm not going to figure it out because I am going to eat. See you when a move has been played. Well, I wasn't sure where the 5147 should go, but this was, in fact, my instinct. My reasoning is if you play it as a relatively weak corner in either 1 or 7, the problem with using a corner in its weak corner is often that your hand is misbalanced to face the rest of the game, right? So if you consider Deli to have 4 corners and kind of a neutral card, then if he plays 5147 in 1, he doesn't have a corner for 9 facing the action, right? And so the only way to use it such that the rest of your hand happily faces the action is to use it in 3 or 9, because 6266 can work in either of the corners, so it will at least somewhat face either way. And this one was the more appealing one to me, in part because I think Akiyama should want to hold on to 6743. So if you play it in 9, Akiyama's capture in 8 is a card he wants to hold on to anyway. Well, if you play it in 3, it is not so much. Also, now my other reason was bad. Okay, should Akiyama just capture this? Because 6266 kind of sweeps everything. So what happens if Akiyama plays 3662 in 2? Well, he covers 6 well, but he doesn't cover 1 well. So I think the correct response for Deli would be like 4763 in 1 or 6565 in 1, taking advantage of the fact that Akiyama does not have a 7 up. And that's another thing Deli's move did that I didn't notice, is he made the game in the direction that Akiyama does not have a 7. Akiyama moves and gives up his capture in 2. This reminds me of a game I played against Deli once upon a time. Oh, but this is very hard for Deli to take as well. Okay, that makes more sense. But I once played a game against Deli. It was on the backhander tournament, and I was intentionally playing just horrendous closed hands to try to crush him in the open. And he ended up winning the match. He definitely outplayed me. But I remember one of the games I played a corner, and he played an adjacent corner, and I didn't realize he had given up his capture. And I should have. It was rotated. The cards were in 3 and 9, I believe. Though my memory's not, perfect, or nowhere close to perfect. But the cards were in like 3 and 9, and my win was in 2, or my win was in 8. Yeah, I don't remember it. But my win was in one of those kind of squares, and I couldn't find it. Here, that seems pretty unlikely. You can't give up 7742 here. So you'd kind of have to play 4763 and 6. And then if Akiyama uses, say, 6266 and 9, it's hard to imagine that's not a somewhat uncomfortable position. All right, I'm going to be back in a couple minutes, but I think this is a good reply, even though it gives up the capture, which is to say this is a move that probably wouldn't be on my radar, but should be on my radar. Like, once you see it, it's a clearly good move, but in my head, something would probably click and say, you can't use your 3662, and I'd only look at other cards, unless you're playing the capture in 2. So this is the kind of move I would probably miss, and someone like Delial might also play, but my kind of somewhat algorithmic thinking these days, I used to be more dynamic, but my type of thought process tends not to lead to this kind of move. But I think it nicely takes advantage of the directional weaknesses, and I think Deli has to be careful here. And based on these 2 games, I'm thinking this is a second turn advantage rule set. All right, a very interesting move from Deli. Lot going on here. It's the big setup move, but the only square that's really well, I guess he sets up 2 and 6 as a pair. 2 and 6 are a pair. Now, notably, Akiyama still has no captures of 3 from 2. But if you take 2, your goal isn't really to capture 3, it's simply that you have a safe card in 2. So my guess is Akiyama sticks something in 2. Let's just say, for sake of argument, 4177. Where does Deli go? What's the idea? There's a whole bunch of options there. Like there's stuff that's like 4763 and 8 saying we have a T where I have 2 really nice sweepers. You're down 6-4 there, but your sweepers are pretty untouchable, right? Like I think you're definitely tying there, or I'd be very surprised if that's not at least a tie. So that could be the idea. I assumed the idea was to play like 4763 and 6 to pair those 2 squares, but I don't think that looks very good. Might be fine, but it would take some calculation to justify. I think the T is maybe more likely to be the plan. There's also 7-7, 4-2, and 4. But there's kind of 3 moves you look at there. I think you look at 4, 6, and 8. There's not enough combo potential lurking in the position, I think, for 7 or 9 to be good, though I suppose it's possible. But I would be very surprised. Or if 7 or 9 were played, I would think it would be a kind of last resort style move. I am starting to definitely think this is a second turn favored rule set. This seems difficult. Note, Tezuka also won on second turn. Not that there's been a win here yet, but I'm starting to think we've seen 3 games on the rule set, and our first turn players have been Vid, Akiyama, and Delial, and that's 3 very, very good players, right? The average quality there is historically high, let's say, and I think second turn has pretty clearly shown advantage in every game. So I wonder what about this makes it a second turn favorite set. Or if it isn't a second turn favorite set, I wonder what you should be doing differently to get an advantage on first turn here. I think that's a really interesting question. I think if someone figured that out, they might learn a whole lot about Triple Triad. Like, what is it that makes. Okay, so if the answer is just you figured out what is it that makes this a second turn favored set in the rules, that's probably not going to teach you that much. But if you figured out what the players are doing not so well on first turn, such that they're giving up a chance for advantage, that would be really educational. That's my hot take. Akiyama really taking his time here in this matchup. I'm feeling deeply insulted. He never takes his time against me. How come Deli can put more pressure on him or make him think more? Though I think here he is thinking not so much in needing to find a save. Though maybe he is. Maybe like 2 is met by 8 and this is very dangerous. But thinking about where's the best way to attack here. That's my guess. But maybe I'm just evaluating this completely wrong. All right. I didn't actually manage to finish my food in the last break, so I'm going to go do so now. But then I may actually be here for the long haul, which may make for a worse video. Who knows? Because I then have to fill all the dead air. I was thinking about this because I'm starting recording FF Tactics, and 4177 is played in 2. So just putting in the moves for my database. You know, sometimes skipping around can make for a cleaner, more coherent product. All right, we'll be back shortly. All right, I think we're finally just here for the long haul. My instinct is still 4763 and 8. It's hard for me to see a way that doesn't tie. Admittedly, like it's not really a winning try. But for instance, 4763 and 8. If they play in 6, say they play in 6 in a way you can't combo, so a 4 or a 3 facing down, they go up 7-3. You play 6-2-6-6 in 9, making it 6-4. And 7-7-4-2 is just guaranteed a capture, so you get the tie. If they go in 9, whether or not they flip 8, you're going to go 6-2-6-6 in 6. You're going to have at least 3, 6, and 9 to your name, and 7-7-4-2 in your hand. That's 4 cards, and 7-7-4-2 is guaranteed a double capture at the end, so you win 6-4 against, I believe, any play there. If if the opponent goes in 4, then you play 7-7-4-2 and 7. You make it 5-5, and 6-2-6-6 is guaranteed a capture to hold the tie. And if they go in 7, 7 could be a problem for this idea. If they go in 7 with 6-7-4-3 exactly, that's a problem. That's a problem. No. You can just switch up which cards you use where. So if 6-7-4-3 lands in 7, you can play 6-2-6-6 in 4, and you're good. Yeah. And if they play something else in 7, they didn't capture 8, and you can go back to regularly scheduled programming with a 7-7-4-2 on the left. You lead 6-4 because they didn't capture. They double capture with 6-3-3-6, and or I guess they used that maybe. Yeah. It's all fine. Okay. I'm not calculating very clearly, but it's all fine. All right. Suzuka's wondering about 6. I was assuming it was uncomfortable. It probably ties. One neat thing about going 6 is if the opponent goes 9 and you go 7-7-4-2 with 8, then 6-2-6-6 sweeps up down. Because Malborough's 2 sets it up, and the 2 actually plays really well. Sorry, I shouldn't be chatting elsewhere while trying to talk. But some line like, for instance, 4-7-6-3-6, 6-2-6-6-9 makes it 6-4 Akiyama, 7-7-4-2-8 makes it 5-5, and ooh, no, that's a problem. No, it's not a problem. 6-7-4-3 comboing through 5 and 4 doesn't hurt you. Okay, he goes for 4. We did not consider this. But I think there's probably just like many roads to a tie here. But all a little bit uncomfortable. All a little bit uncomfortable. So the question here is 6 or 7. My instinct is 6 is a little more dangerous. So let's say 6-3-3-6 and 6. If 6-2-6-6 and 6, that gets comboed to high heaven. So 6-3-3-6 and 6. And now if you go 4-7-6-3 and 7, you lose to 6-2-6-6 and 9 or 6-7-4-3 and 9. But I suppose you can start with 6-2-6-6 and 9. And if yeah, your 4-7-6-3 covers 6-7-4-3 because the 4-3 pluses if that goes in 7. He's picked up a card. Is he going to play 6? Was his instinct the same as me? Because I thought 6-3-3-6 and 6 was critical, but 6-2-6-6 and 9 just about earns a tie. Yeah, he does go 6-3, 3-6, and 6, which means I don't really have to calculate other things. My my tie here is 6-2, 6-6 in 9. And the point is you really need to be able to capture 7, but 4-7-6-3 can just about capture 7. So well held by Delhi here. Um, from a somewhat scary looking position, I think. I think this is the kind of position that can really easily get away from you, and there's probably a number of paths to a tie. Um, Now, I think, as always, showing that Delial and I think the major difference between us in style is not so much born of like different ideas. Um, a common point in chess is like, or not that common, but it should be common. Let's put in the last few moves. So this is going to be 5-5, as you can see. Is if you take two very strong players and say one of them's like aggressive and one's defensive, and you take two weak players and one's aggressive and one's defensive, what's more similar? The strong player to the strong player or the aggressive player to the aggressive player? And the answer is it's the strong player to the strong player. So many positions, two strong players will be looking at the same things and will be playing the same moves. That's just part of being strong, right? Stylistic differences matter significantly less than uh, just strength of player. And so there's a bunch of that going on where we are like similar strength players, so we see similar things much of the time. But I think one of the big differences is he looks for wins where I look for ties. And I think that really is a large difference. Um, I think a lot of the differences you will find in moves we make are me making a move that like is like okay locking down the tie and him making a move like okay this is a real chance to win and yeah I think that's a major difference. I don't have a great feel for how Akiyama plays. Maybe the stylistic differences are bigger there. He just plays very well, but like very well in a way that isn't immediately obvious to me. I think when thinking about his strengths, I remember his series with Seto, where every time a position looked bad for him, he just immediately found a way to neutralize it. This was in Triad Wars 14 semifinals. And every time a position looked good for him, he just like all the combos at the end of the game, he made them click. I think he is really good, as is Seto. I think they're both really good at this, at seeing from very far away which cards are going to matter and why, and how they're going to click together in those end games. And so it's not just that he's like an elite calculator, which he definitely is, a remarkably fast calculator. It's just checking messages. It's not just that he's a remarkably fast calculator. It's that that calculation kind of inspires the early play. All right, we're gonna fight over whether 8 loses or not. Yeah. Okay. We're just miscounting. That's okay. He found the more comfortable tie. Um, um, all right. So it looks like both paths worked for a tie. 4, 7, 6, 3, and 6 might also have worked. Tezuka mentioned that one. Um, Anywho, another nice game. We have now tied 2 games in the open between these two titans of the game. And yeah, I was just thinking during one of my many pause breaks. Um, during my many pause breaks, I was thinking like when I'm playing either of these two players in a tournament, it feels like I'm not gonna win unless I get a big advantage off the hand. That I'm just like some games they'll outplay me, some games I'll outplay them, right? But I am never going to outplay them by enough unless they are thrown off really early. They're just not going to make enough mistakes, right? If you think of this as like each player over the course of a game makes 4 moves in a game, right? I guess first turn player makes 5, but the last move is forced. So 4 moves where there is any decision. Move 8, any good player is going to play perfectly. Move 7, players of this caliber will play perfectly. Move 6, they will play almost perfectly. Very close to perfect. Very rare to see a mistake. And so you have a game where really, if you're on first turn player has to make good moves on 1, 3, and 5, and second turn player has to make good moves on 2, 4, and 6, when 6 is almost guaranteed to be that good move. So to beat a player if you're on first turn, you need them to go enough astray on moves 2 and 4 that they can't redeem the game, save the game on move 6. And that's just really hard to do. You need them to essentially like one shaky move is not enough. So you need to see a really big blunder or 2 shaky moves to get yourself a win, right? If you're first turn. Now, first turn, I think it's easier on average to induce shaky moves. I'm not saying this makes it like impossible to win on first turn, but you really need them to go 2 for 2 on shaky moves. And players this good won't do that unless they are really, really struggling against your hand. Now, let's look at it from the other perspective. Your second turn. 1, 3, and 5 are all real turns. So you need them to insert 2 shaky moves within 1, 3, and 5. 5 is not near as accurate at 6, but these top level players are going to make very few shaky moves on move 5. But significantly more than they will on 6, so it should be included. But you need to get, I'm repeating myself. You need to get 2 shaky moves out of your opponent, and there's only 3 moves they're making in the game, right? So you need like 2 out of their 3 or 2 out of their 2 moves to be shaky moves. Now, shaky moves doesn't mean like a horrible mistake, right? If you induce 2 kind of poor moves, often that is enough to get you the win. But top players don't make 2 shaky moves in a row that often, right? Even if like a lot of positions, like there are a lot of shaky moves to make, but it's just top players aren't doing them that often, which is why it can be a tie prone game. And against these two particularly, I think it's just really hard to get them to make that many shaky moves in a game. Um, you know, there are lots of games they'll make 1 and you get to press. There are lots of games they're just going to make 0, right? And like, if you think like what percentage of moves does Delial make that are shaky? You count like the first 3 moves he makes each game. Let's not count the 4th move. So 2, 4, 6 or 1, 3, 5. What percentage of moves on those in a game does he make that are shaky? 10%, 20%? I don't know. But if it's 10%, what are the odds he's going to make 2 out of 3 moves? Right? It's 1% he'll make 2 in a row, and if there are 3 permutations of 10% times 10% times 90%, um, you'll get something a little under 3%. Now, top players do lose more than 3% of the time. So these numbers are clearly, and not just 3% of matches, but it has to be 3% of games. But sometimes opponents don't take advantage of their mistakes. So actually, anyways. So the number of shaky moves has to be a higher percentage than that. But it's just not that high. It's just very hard to win games, and this is going to continue to be, I think, a really tough matchup in all directions. All right, Deli sticks with his hand, and Akiyama moves towards his first hand again. Interestingly, he drops the 6632, and I don't know if he's wrong. My instinct is always 6632s are better than 7541s, but it is not at all obvious that the 6632 is played better. The 6632s have not felt like powerful cards in Akiyama's hand at all. And the 5147s or the 4157, I think have seen a little more use, which surprises me a little. Maybe the dominance of 6266s, meaning just cards with extra 6s on it like that, aren't so good. Ooh, Akiyama switches to Iron Giant. Akiyama has decided the dynamism of a 6363. Deli has, used these cards with more overall power, and they have impressed enough that Akiyama has switched to using a level 5 there. I think that's one of the most interesting decisions on this rule set is, do you go level 3 or do you go level 5 on that card? And Deli has shown 2 instincts. Deli has gone with the level 5, not the level 3, and Deli has gone with a 7541, not a 6632. And Akiyama, who I think is just a very skilled adapter to things, has now joined him, at least for now, on both conclusions. Very interesting to see. Without having thought about it too much, I think that is a very compelling case that Delial's instincts here are right, and Akiyama coming along is a confirmation there. All right, what else is going on? Yeah, Deli notes Akiyama's a thief. He is. He is such a thief. Not a pure hand theft. He's sticking with the 7741, which, as I've said, I think is a good decision. The 7742 was relevant last game in some lines I looked at because 6266 could play off it. But of course, there are going to be some lines where 6266 wants to see a 1 facing out just to guarantee the recapture. All right, got to find a first turn again. Again, sort of thinking where can the 5147 land that does something, but it's not obvious there's anything super clean on it. I don't like first turn. I don't want first turn on this rule set. I wish all the first turns upon my opponent. What if you play a 7-7-4-2 and 7? Do they have a huge setup? Almost certainly. But let's find it. You know, if they play something like 6-5, 6-5, and 5, that sets up your 4-7, 6-3. You're pretty happy. So do they have a way to set up 8 that doesn't set you up? Probably 7-7-4-1 and 5 is sufficient. There's 6-2, 6-6, and 5, but that sets you up to have double. There's 7-7-4-1 and 9 as well. That might be very tough to play around. No, then you just play 8. You just play the same in 8, and you're not getting comboed, and they can't recapture that. So there's 4-1-5-7 and 9. 4-1-5-7 and 9 is probably the trickier way. Yeah, I don't think that's very appealing. I think starting on this set's really hard. Maybe the thought should actually be in hand construction, just like, how do I make a viable starter? Because this is clunky. Now, something to note. Akiyama has 3 6s facing down. So if you do play something like 5-1-4-7 and 3 again, 3 of Akiyama's potential captures in 6 are immediately comboed back. I guess one of them doesn't capture. But 4-1-5-7 doesn't have the capture. There are 3 cards that capture, 2 of them 6-2, 6-6 is covered. The only one that you don't have combo play against is 7-7-4-1. And that can be a kind of pressure. You have to use this card that is very easy for me to take and gives up a lot of power that you might want to hold on to. So I think there is a case for going high again. Now, using similar reasoning to how Delial might have thought about last game, I don't know if he actually did, but I sort of attribute it to him. He played at the top when Akiyama didn't have a 7 facing up, and this might indicate he will look to play at the bottom when Akiyama does not have a 7 facing down. This also draws me to 6-5, 6-5 in 7 as a potential, you have trouble taking this from 4, but Deli can't take it from 4 either, so scratch that idea. I'm not sure. I'm going to go look at the Discord, see what's going on there. Nope, that's not how you spell Discord. That's Doscord. Dosboo? That's a movie that I don't think I've seen. Anyhow, yeah. Part of the reason I'm not brainstorming much is because nothing is appealing to me. And so the cards are just kind of like, it's unpleasant to try to make them click because they're not clicking in some obvious way. And when that happens, this also comes up in lines where you'd have to calculate difficult lines to calculate. What I tend to do is start babbling about something else and wait for a move to happen so I can just look at that move instead of having to proactively think for myself. And as a player who is, not currently tournament active, I think this is my right. Okay, so if 7-7-4-1 and 4, then you have 7-7-4-2 and 7, and you build a nice wall of 7s. And that is the only capture from 4. So Delial now has a threat of some kind to drop something in 2, because Akiyama going in 4 is not scary. Okay, what if Akiyama goes in 2? 7-7-4-2 is not a good recapture. 7-7-4-1 has that dominated, but 5-1-4-7 and 8 gives compensation there. You can combo back. Okay. So it might be that if they go 2, you can just recapture in 4. In fact, if we start thinking more specifically, if 4-1-5-7 and 2, and Deli plays 7-7-4-2 and 4, then he also sets up a same in 5. So not only does 5-1-4-7 have a potential plus wall in 8 against 7, but it has a same in 5. What's the other capture? 6266. Where is the compensation against 6266? If you then play 7742 and 4, they have Iron Giant and 5, as well as having 7, but Iron Giant 5 is the one that can't be immediately comboed back. So 6266 and 2 looks like the move that says, I've got you covered. Does Deli have a nice move in 3 there? In 6? I don't think so. So I think he probably has to end up doing something in 3. But it does get 6266 out of Akiyama's hand. So if you play something like 4763 in 3, your 6266 still has a lot of power covering those 6s down. I think Akiyama should probably play 7741 and 6 there. But as soon as 7741 is out of his hand, he has no threat against 2, and Deli probably can hold there with something like 5147 and 9, and might even have pressure out of that. Okay, so it might be that Akiyama doesn't have a way to take, and that Deli can sort of threaten to go in 2 or 4, and is ready to meet Akiyama's potential captures with stuff that's useful. Deli is not fully sold by his move. Akiyama takes immediately with 7741. This is not the direction capture I expected. Ooh, but he has a point. Deli only has 6s and 4s facing down. That means if Deli goes in 7 here, and Akiyama blocks 2, and Akiyama keeps 4157 and one of Iron Giant or Dwarf in his hand, and he'll have one of those. So as long as he keeps 4157, Deli can't block 5 without giving Akiyama captures. So this is scary. This is scary, right? Um, Deli is talking about a different move for Akiyama to play, so I gave him a heads up that Akiyama has moved, just so he doesn't lose time thinking about other possibilities. So you can also just recapture from 2, but can you? You cannot so comfortably. So it does look like 7742 in 7 is the main line. And then if Akiyama plays either of Dwarf or Iron Giant in 2, he sets up a big threat in 5, and again, you can't block 5 without giving him 8. So this is really scary. I think sort of on the nomenclature of our last move, the starter was really hard here, and maybe there was no non-shaky starter, right? We don't know. But the core problem is if you go 7, Akiyama goes 2, and you cannot block 5 without surrendering a combo in 8. Sorry, you cannot go 5. Akiyama goes 2, and you don't have 5, which means Akiyama goes 2 and will get 5. And you need to find some way to hold at the end. Now, because the card he's setting up 5 in is 2, that has to be one of 6565 or 4763, and the other one has to be the one used in 5. If Akiyama ends up taking 5, he will not also have 8. This is very important, which means Deli might be able to go 6 at the end and hold, but I don't know that he has the cards to do so. This feels really scary to me. I don't see a clean path here. My main line is 7-7-4-2 and 7. Say 4-7-6-3 and 2. Something 3. 6-5-6-5-5. Something 6 makes it 5-5. And then 6-2-6-6 goes in 9 if you've kept left power, or goes in. I guess there's no capture in 8. Okay, so maybe you hold by playing. Maybe you hold by playing in 6 in a way that keeps 4-7-6-3. You keep 4-7-6-3 because they have no captures in 8. So you just need to be able to take anything they put in 9. And they won't be able to land 4-1-5-7 in 9 because your card in 6 will be, say, 5-1-4-7. Okay, maybe that holds. It's very dangerous, though. Now I'm getting more messages. So I have my tying idea, my hopefully tying idea, and it might not be good and it might need work, is 7-7-4-2-7. Say, all right, Turds is saying Iron Giant 2, so let's say Iron Giant 2. Iron Giant 2, 6-2-6-6-3, 4-7-6-3-5, 5-1-4-7-6. No, that doesn't work. Doesn't work because we never flip 5. Um, all right. So Deli goes, ooh. Deli goes interesting, as he so often does. Okay. This was not on anyone I was talking to's radar, but it is a very plausible move type. Actually, no, that was wrong because I had not yet clicked over to my messages from Tezuka, who had just said, "What about 8?" Um, so okay, Tezuka and Deli still on the same page, and Turd saying hadn't looked there yet, but that is the kind of thing you start looking for. Yeah, because you don't have 2, and 7 is really awkward. So you start trying to figure out 8. 6-2-6-6 can sweep the right. So actually, this kind of way of filling up the board can have a real logic to it, which actually makes me think. So something we didn't consider: 7-7-4-2-7. Akiyama goes, say, Iron Giant 2. You go 8. You go 4-7-6-3-8. Now Akiyama is kind of obliged to take 5 there, and then you just go 5-1-4-7-9, and you've locked in 2 cards on the bottom. You have 6-2-6-6, and it's guaranteed enough captures. That might have been the cleanest way. I'm gonna send that along to people I was talking to this about. Uh, So that's my pick for the correct way, like the technically I am going to hold this position strategy. I might have miscalculated something there because some of the lines I calculated didn't work. My main line of 7 7 4 2 and 7, 6 5 6 5 and 5, 6 2 6 6 5 6 5 and 2, 6 2 6 6 3, 4 7 6 3 5. My idea was 4 1 5 7 6, but we never flipped 5. So if we had flipped 5 and it was 5 5, they'd have to go 9 and we'd go 8 and tie with Marlboro. But we have not flipped 5, so they go 8 and we go 9 and we don't flip anything and we lose. So I've definitely gotten lines wrong before, but I think the professional way to hold this position was 7 7 4 2 7, 6 5 6 5 2. There's also 4 7 6 3 2, but then my other line probably does work because we can flip 5 at the end. 6 5 6 5 2. All right, we'll get to this shortly. 4 7 6 3 5. Sorry, 6 5 6 5 2. 4 7 6 3 8. Forcing 4 1 5 7. Sorry, 4 7 6 3 5, and then 5 1 4 7 9. And if they go 6, they can only go up 7 3, and you have a double capture in 3. If they go 3, you at least capture that to get it to 5 5. You probably don't capture 5, but you certainly don't capture 5, but that's going to hold. So that's my professional tie. Tezuka's running off. This is too complicated for all of us. I have no idea what's going on. We should return to the game. But I do think that line's really important. I think it's important to find the kind of what's the forcing path to a tie, and then there's also what's the complex path to who knows what is happening. So I'm very pleased with that line. That's the kind of line I'm like proud of and happy to find in games. So it's what I'm going to focus on. But the game itself is much more complicated. So there's 7 7 4 2 5. That puts Delial up 6 to 4. Let's assume 4 1 5 7 in 2, which would put Akiyama up 6 to 4. Then, if Deli plays 4 7 6 3 and 9, he gets the tie in very similar fashion to what I was saying. So, can Akiyama go somewhere other than 2? Well, he could go 9, but then if Deli goes 2 with 4 7 6 3, unless Akiyama has a plus through 5, and even if he does have a plus through 5, no, I'm counting wrong. Okay, Deli goes 5, it's 5 5. Akiyama goes 9, it is 6 4. Deli goes 2, it is still. No, sorry. Deli is up 6 4 after he goes 5. That's why I was having trouble counting. Deli is up 6 4. Akiyama goes 9. It is 5 5. And Deli doesn't have a card to put in 2. So specifically, Akiyama plays 4 1 5 7 in 9. Oh, but then Deli. No. No. Oh, I think this is a problem. I'm seeing this really uncleanly, but I think Marlboro 5, 4 1 5 7 9. And the problem is you can't take the combo in 6, but they can. Oh, no, 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 no. Bear with me. You play 6 2 6 6 in 3. Marlboro 5, 4 1 5 7 9, 6 2 6 6 in 3. The score is 5 5. If they flip either of 3 or 5, you combo back from the other square. So the only way you can lose is if they take 1. But if you go in 6, you also you flip 9. I think that holds. I think that's the critical line. think that's the line we're gonna see actually. I think 77425 ties. I think you have to find 3 at the end there. That took me a bit to find. So you know, if it took me a bit to find, then like sure, Seto finds it instantly, but you know, none of us are Seto, so we all take a bit to find such things. So I think 5 holds. Is there 65653? This is so tricky. 65653 might be a killer. We're up 6-4. No, that's just a tie. Yeah. So I made a miscalculation. Though I liked the line I saw, I thought it was very clever, but I made a miscalculation. Akiyama cannot play 4157 twice. So if 7742 goes in 5 and Akiyama plays 4157 and 9, Deli can play 4763 and 6 because Akiyama no longer has 2. Now, if Akiyama could play that card twice, we would need my move. Oh no. Oh no. This is very worrisome to see. Deli didn't believe in it. Now, either we missed something, or he did, or this also works, but this is never the move you like to see. This is often a move that concedes too much. All right, well, Turds is going, trust Deli to get weird, and has clearly faith in it. When I see a move like this, I go, oh no, oh no, this is not what I want to see. Maybe it just works though. All right, so if Akiyama goes in 2, and Delial goes 7-7-4-2 in 5, then I know there will be a combo back in 6. But Deli will have 6-2-6-6 and 9 at the end. He'll have 8, he'll have 6, and he'll have locked in 1 and 4 when he played 7-7-4-2 and 5. Unless it's 4-1-5-7 and 2. 4-1-5-7 and 2? Is that a problem? No, because then you combo with 6-2-6-6 and 5, so that's not a problem. Okay, so 2 doesn't work. If they block 5, oh, that's so scary as well. Oh, shouldn't they just block 5? I think they should block 5. I'm really worried about 5. Turd says anything in 9 just loses. But I think 5's a problem. I specifically say 4-7-6-3-5. Looks to me like a 6-4 for Akiyama. Am I missing something? I don't think so. I think that's a win for Akiyama. I'm not sure, but I don't see the tie against 47635. Um, there might also be something 6, but I think blocking 5 does it. Turds is checking that line. I guess I haven't given variations, but my problem is if I go 2, I must either go with 7742, in which case I don't take anything, and I'm going to be down 7-3 on the last turn with only 1 recapture. 6266, the problem is I'm weak to 3, so it combos through when 6565 lands in 6. I don't think you can block 6, and if you go 9, neither of your cards is good in both squares. Turds of saying Marlboro 2 might hold. Um, aren't you down? The combo does nothing. I think we're going to see 4, 7, 6, 3, and 5. And oh, I'm worried. All right, loud sound impending. As I move the computer. I don't want to comment in the Delhi chat because obviously that's where, you know, he's playing. He has not picked up 4763. So that means one of two things. One, I was wrong. Okay, but this one, Delhi can play 6266 in 5, and he flips 2 things to go up 6-4, and he's good. But I could be wrong. All right. Delhi says it didn't work and that he had 9. 9. Ah, he's right. I think he's right. Huh. Very interesting save then. I really thought he was doomed. I kind of wish that line had happened because then it would have been all exciting to see me be so wrong. But oh, what an interesting game. This is a fascinating game to look at for kind of different defenses. Because I think I could be wrong. I've miscalculated a lot this game. I think I found the professional way to save the game. And by professional I don't mean like higher level. I mean like you do this, it's quite clear, you found the straightforward path where like things can't have gone awry. And then Delhi has shown the like absolutely most complicated, most like convoluted and messy way. And that's cool to see as well. So Deli's going to play 6-2, 6-6, and 5. He's going to go up 6-4. And then Akiyama is going to play 6-5, 6-5, and 9. Weirdly, the only tie. And hold. Turds has concluded, don't listen to him, listen to Deli, because the line he calculated was wrong. Yeah, Deli says hate when they have one tie left. Yeah. But they do have the tie. What a remarkable game. All right, this game was great. I have to check. I have to go check with the solver because I have to, right? But this was a remarkable game, and I think we'll find it was probably perfectly played and just absolutely remarkable effort. You know, previous games were good. This is the game of the match, I think. And I have to go to the solver right away because I am fascinated here. Did my professional tie work? Did Deli's like normal tie just going in 5 work? And did Deli's loony, ridiculous, strange tie work? What a game. All right, so putting in Deli's hand first. Hard to even remember which cards were his. Moves like 3 in 3 like that just always indicate the player's about to lose. Like, high-level players like to do it, some rate of the time, and it just so reliably is, oh, things have gone wrong and they're trying to make it messy. And I think this is one of the few times when it just, like, didn't mean that. He just had it figured out. All right. I've put in the hands. That was great. All right, let's head over to the solver, which is trying to open. Should be there now. Is it there? It is there. Okay. Deli goes here. Akiyama takes. Now the solver is going to be real slow with this running. Okay, there are definitely multiple ties. But there's a lot of losing moves here. So I think the professional way to hold was 7-7, 4-2, and 7. Which does hold. And then after Turds' move, 6-5, 6-5, and 2. Okay, apparently there's a lot of ties here. That surprises me. I thought this was really difficult. I wanted 4-7, 6-3, and 8. And that only gives one tie. They must go... Wait, they must go 5 that way. And then I was going to play here. And yeah. Okay. So my professional tie does work. It did force 5. Anything else loses. Okay. But Deli did not go the kind of the beaten path route. Deli went the big setup. And this does not work. This is losing. Akiyama has 1 win, but he must find the right card to put in 7. And it is very hard to judge which card goes in 7. And I guess we'll say it looks like Iron Giant in 7 for some reason is the winning move. And if you want, this might be an interesting position to figure out why that's the card you need out of your hand. All other moves tie. Okay. Akiyama plays 6-2, 6-6. And now there is 1 tie for Deli. Holy cow. Okay. 7-7, 4-2, and 5 did not work because of 4-1, 5-7, and 2. I thought, oh, there's pluses. Oh. So I thought this worked, but it gets comboed. No, I thought this worked, but it gets comboed. All right, so Deli correctly identified, oh man, this is an even better game than I thought. 5 did not work. 5 did not work. I figured this held, but it did not. Okay, 5 didn't work. The only tying move was what he played. Incredible save. I would not have saved this game from this point. There's no win. Holy wow. What a move. What a move. This kind of structure. This is not something where he's grabbed 7. Going in 3 without having grabbed anything on the left row. Wow. And Deli's right. I thought this was the win, but there is one tie here, and Deli's right. It's Marlboro 9. And I missed this. But it sets up 6266 to be great in 6. And while they can go 6 and take stuff, and you don't have a combo back, they can't take 9. So Deli told me to count again, and he was right. Incredible save from Deli. What a game. We got to end the video here. That is truly a remarkable play. Yeah, wow. Wow. What a game.